Meeting is called to order. Mr. Mark Chambers will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll need a roll call to determine if we have a quorum.
Alderperson Tepley.
Here.
McCarthy. Here. Chambers.
Here.
Melby. Here. Downs. Here. Cairns. Here. Okay, you got a quorum.
Well, was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Okay, next on the agenda, approval of the minutes. Once the council's had a moment to review those, entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes from the second.
A motion from Mr. Melby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, minutes approved. Next is approval of the agenda. There are a couple of changes that need to be made. Item 5 needs to be deleted. We will not be appointing a city treasurer tonight, which means item 6 comes off too because it is related to item 5. And also, let's see what number it was, item Panorama Estates needs to move up and will be done right after approval of the agenda. Mr. King, who has joined us tonight, will be driving home to Rhinelander tonight. Out of consideration, we're going to move him up. And then 5 and 6 need to come off. Are there any other necessary changes? Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion from Ms. Templey, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Chambers. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is carried. Agenda is approved, which is going to bring us to Panorama Estates, which had been item 10, review and approval of Panorama Estates TIF development incentive for buildings 2 and 3. Mr. Glassbrenner, what do you have for us this evening?
All right, so I'm trying to balance screens here. So, yeah, this is an agenda item that we've been working on for a long time. And as you mentioned, Mayor, we do have Jonathan King, who is the executive developer, new executive developer for Panorama Estates. We also have Keith Dahl from Ellers here on the screen with us, if I'm not covering up with an agenda sheet. And so I would just like to start out with a little bit of background on this process. And what we're looking to accomplish tonight is approve a development incentive package for the construction of buildings 2 and 3 of Panorama Estates. A little bit about the history. First, I guess I want to give a really quick update on what is TIF and what is TID. So oftentimes people don't understand that, or we forget, we don't go through it frequently enough. So TIF is a tax incremental finance, and TID is a tax incremental district. These are tools that are established by the state of Wisconsin. Keith can go into much more detail than I can, that allow us to create areas of development where we're able to capture the future tax revenues for the purpose of incentivizing development today. And so it is not a tool that causes tax rates to go up or people's tax bills to go up. It simply looks at the future revenue that's going to come into a district. It allows the municipality to capture it. Again, it's authorized by state statute. And then we use the future revenues to help make sure that development happens today. There are really 2 primary types of financing used in TIF. One is called pay-go. Pay-go stands for pay as you go. There's less cost to execute this. Basically what pay-go means is that the incentive that would be provided to the developer, in this case Panorama Estates, is provided only after the district receives the tax revenue necessary to support the development. So it's a much lower risk tool to a city. It doesn't cause the city to have to use any of its borrowing capacity. There's other fees that you would go through if you use the standard model of tax incremental financing, which is to go out in addition and to borrow money or to use cash on hand to give directly to the developer up front. If you do that type of thing, then you have underwriting fees and you have to capitalize interest and things of that nature, which makes the cost of assisting a developer in development more expensive for the municipality. So again, two types, pay as you go, it's much less cost, you avoid legal fees, you avoid underwriting fees, you don't have to capitalize interest, and there's no borrowing to the city, which is a major benefit. Let's see, did I cover everything on that one? Yep, traditional. So, brief history, negotiations for Building 2 actually began back in 2021. And fortunately, we're here today to talk about the construction of both Buildings 2 and 3. So, some of the challenges that have arose over that time is rising material costs, labor costs, interest rates, the need for more developer equity in the project. Of course, we went through COVID. So there's been a lot of things that have really made it difficult for both a developer to identify his costs and for a municipality to assist in that process. And so it has been quite challenging. On September of 2023, we were all introduced to Jonathan King as the new executive developer for Panorama Estates. The former owner-developer was Dwayne Kleinsaucer, and Dwayne and Jonathan have crafted a deal where Jonathan would become the new executive developer. And so the last time we had a presentation on Panorama Estates and we talked about this item coming before you again, Jonathan was here making a presentation. The initial request for city support was $2 million of upfront cash for each building. The developer would also put in cash of $2 million per building. On November 30th of 24, we had meetings with city staff, the developer, and Ellers to review the pro forma and TIF analysis based on that $2 million upfront for each building. Ellers provided data that showed that the TIF district could not reasonably support $4 million in upfront incentive, so kind of created this stalemate. And then, as a result of that conversation, though, Jonathan agreed to go back, relook at all of the numbers, redo some estimating, talk to his lending agency, and agreed that we would consider a pay-go model, right? So again, pay-go model would be the buildings are constructed, they collect tax revenue, that tax revenue then comes into that district, and then we're able to offer development incentive based on the tax revenue that's generated. So, on January 11, 2024, I got a call. It was in the middle of another meeting. It was Jonathan and Keith, and they said all parties believe that we had an acceptable path forward. So that was really exciting news, and that's what brings us here tonight. On the phone, I want to pass it over to Keith from Ellers, and he's going to review the financial nuts and bolts of this deal. Here you go, Keith, and I believe you'll be able to share your screen.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. I think at this juncture, I'll start with just a brief overview of the pro forma analysis that Ellers conducted as the city's financial consultant with reviewing this proposed development. With any city that receives a request for public assistance, it's imperative to review the financials of the development to ensure that we're not unduly enriching the developer with the public assistance provided. At the end of the day, we want to provide the minimum amount from the public to make the project financially feasible to move forward. And that's the impetus for completing a pro forma analysis that we refer to it as at Ellers. And so what a pro forma analysis means is we're not only looking at the development budget, their sources and uses, their pro forma, but we're digging into the land acquisition costs, the hard construction costs to physically construct the apartment building. We're looking at all of the soft costs with the financing, architectural fees, engineering fees, other professional service fees, developer fees, and escrows. We want to compare these against what we term as general industry standards. And we're looking at other projects within Minnesota and Wisconsin within the last 6 months to a year to compare what other developments were, one, requesting for public assistance, but two, where their costs came in. In addition to that, we're also taking a look at the rental revenue for the project, looking at what is being underwritten for the project and comparing it to what's generally conceivable within the market. And we leverage CoStar in order to look at what the current market rate is for the area, the greater area, and then we also look at what the developer is underwriting and what the developer has reviewed for projects. We also take a look at the operating expenses. So this is a comprehensive review in addition to the interest rates and how the developer is ultimately financing the deal. Ultimately, we don't want to have more city money in the project than equity at the end of the day. And that's what Jason was ultimately getting at when we were looking at the upfront model with $4 million coming from the city and $4 million of equity. Traditionally, we want to see that equity amount higher. Now, when it comes to pay-as-you-go assistance, we're committing to a future value that no money is exchanging hands at the beginning with the city providing any money to the developer. Ultimately, what is happening is the city has an obligation. You provide a note to the developer to provide a percentage of the generated tax increment annually over a certain period of time. From there, the developer is able to take that pay-as-you-go note, or more commonly referred to as a municipal revenue obligation note, to his financial institution, and they're able to monetize that money. This effectively shifts the risk from the city with issuing debt up front, and if tax increment isn't there to support the debt service, you ultimately have to pull the funds from somewhere else or levy for that additional benefit. In which case, we don't want to do that. Ultimately, with PAYGO, and why the risk shifts, is because now the developer bears that risk with the financial institution, and the city is only obligated to pay the percentage and the total amount that we're talking about, with the caveat that if the TIF, if the tax increment district and the increment that's being generated from the property isn't enough to repay that MRO note.
Oh, lost. Keith, you just went on mute.
Oh.
There you are, you're back.
All right. Where did I get cut off there?
MRO note.
Isn't enough to pay the...
It keeps muting on me. Is somebody muting me? No? Okay. So if there's not enough tax increment generated to repay that MRO note over the remaining term of the TID, ultimately that's not an obligation of the city to make the developer whole, and that is a risk. So the developer may end up with less than what we originally projected. So with that, ultimately we reviewed the development. We have determined that the PAYGO amount of $5.4 million, keep in mind that's a future value amount. If you take into account the time value of money, assuming that there's going to be interest paid on dollars and principal amount, the developer would probably get about $3 million roughly from their lender up front today. So you can put that in comparison to what he was ultimately requesting for the $4 million up front. In addition to the pay-as-you-go assistance, the developer has also requested a building permit fee waiver and a zoning permit fee waiver of a little over $70,000. Ultimately, the intent is to reimburse the city for this, but it is a fee waiver to the developer, and we're going to use tax increment from the district to make the city whole for those fee waivers. The final thing that I do want to mention is that in addition to those two pieces of financial assistance to support the construction of phase 2 and 3, the developer did also request that regarding the phase 1 development and the debt service obligation that development has to pay a portion of the upfront bonds that the city issued. They have asked for forgiveness on the remaining amount of debt service projected. And we do have attachments in the packet that can go into more detail about this. If you're specifically looking at page number 3 in the Ehlers analysis, there's a general obligation community development bond series 2017A, and that's specifically what I'm referring to. So the total amount of bonds issued by the city back in 2017 was $795,000. Of that amount, there were 2 projects that were ultimately financed. There were Highway 14 improvements, but also Phase 1 improvements for the internal roads, streets, gutters, stormwater, so forth, sanitary sewer. It is that portion of the bonds that was split 50-50 between the city paying debt service and the developer paying debt service. Ultimately, the city's debt service is coming from tax increment that's generated from Phase 1 itself. But the developer was providing 50% of that each year to the city. Now, if you take a look at how much the developer has paid to date, it's a little over $82,000, and the total amount of future debt service forgiveness is slightly under $311,000. The reason why this number is higher than the $288,000 that you see in the table is because the $288,000 figure is only principal. If you take into account interest when you're talking about debt service, that total amount is what the forgiveness would potentially be. Now, at Ehlers, we wanted to ensure that if the city did forgive this future debt service obligation of the developer, that you would have enough tax increment being generated from the Phase 1 development alone to be able to support that, because we do not want to increase the city levy or leverage other funds of the city to pay that debt service. And what we determined was that from Phase 1, the average tax increment that's being generated is around $130,000 annually. And if you forgive the debt service to the developer, the city's annual debt service will average around $61,000. So you will have enough tax increment being generated from Phase 1 in order to support the debt service obligations for the total amount of the bonds back from 2017. So with that, we did determine that this level of public assistance was warranted. And the main reason why the developer is asking for that forgiveness of future debt service obligations ultimately comes down to the transaction that's happening with Jonathan taking over the executive developer of the entire Panorama Estates and needing that additional capital freed up from Phase 1 so that he can put it towards Phase 2 and 3 for the housing that's most desperately needed within the city of Richland Center right now. So this is a lot of information that I have just shared with everyone. I'm more than happy to open it up for any questions, and I'm more than happy to share my screen and go into more specific numbers with the total analysis documents that are in front of you this evening.
Okay, Jason, first of all, would you please hand Mr. King the microphone?
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, now before I have Mr. King make whatever statement he wishes to make, I'm going to ask the council if you have questions for the gentleman from Ehlers at this point. Okay, in a minute here, I'll have John King introduce himself. There's a lot of community members behind you, and you are on video, sir. I wanted to say first, this leg of things which brought Mr. King and his partners into this project began in late August when Mr. Dwayne Kleinsasser called me on a Wednesday and said, I need you in the Dells tomorrow night. And I did meet John King in the Dells on a Thursday night in late August, and he walked me through who he is, who his partners are, what their ambitious goals for building rental housing were, and walked me through the buildings that were just recently completed in the Dells, and they're gorgeous. And I sent photos of a bunch of apartments that were back to several older persons and to Jason and Ashley. And John came down and addressed the council. I just wanted to point out, from that point to this point, there's been a lot of give and take. There's been a lot of back to the drawing board to get it done. And I wanted to thank the staff at Ellers for excellent work on the project, and also Jason Glassbrenner and Ashley Oliphant for excellent work on the project, and Mr. King and his entire group for their willingness to keep working with us until we found a workable solution. John, why don't you tell the folks about what you folks build?
All right, well, thanks so much. I appreciate meeting you all and being here today again in a beautiful community. I've fallen in love with Richland Center. I think that it could be an icon for Wisconsin. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think that having a housing crisis in Richland Center is honestly a blessing to me, because we get to be part of that growth and hopefully a big part of the future expansion of Richland Center. So basically, we're looking to build affordable market rate housing for working class families that can live really in a, by community standards, a luxury appointed apartment building that's safe, that's beautiful, the views, it has everything that one could want. Certainly not having to shovel snow and mow lawns in Wisconsin is always a good idea to focus on family and things like that. We really focus on bringing a very high, thank you Jason, a very high quality product. We service it ourselves, we do all the management, the building, the contracting, the oversee the design, the execution, and then ultimately the management. Some of the things that you'll notice with this design, we've worked really closely with ADCI and different architectural designers to create a product that is not only, we get the economy of scale to be able to bring a housing product. There's a reason, by the way, that there's a housing crisis, is because the single family home model is extremely expensive to build, with square footages ranging from $300 to $450 a square foot in that model. That's not extensible as far as the populations grow. You have to be able to make certain adjustments, and the way that we make these adjustments is with the economy of scale, that we can do this by bringing so many apartments to one site. And specifically, that's why for Panorama, to meet our core, we're fully vertically integrated, where we manufacture all of our own components. We have direct to manufacturer relationships with all of our components, with our subcontractors. We've worked with them over and over and over again. And we wanted to bring the economy of scale to this particular product, but we didn't want to lose the benefit of why people want to go home and have this isolation. What you'll see in some of these, if you can go back 3 slides, what you have specifically here is what's called an undulated exterior and interior. And believe it or not, this costs, anytime that there's anything other than a flat wall, it costs a lot of money to have those ins and outs. But those ins and outs are absolutely critical to the quality of life, because first of all, you'll also see those in the hallway inside, and it makes the hallways very quiet, very private. And when people go into the building, they're secure, they feel comfortable, it's quiet, it's a very homey feel. From the exterior, what you can notice about these buildings, besides the fact that they're beautiful, is they're also very private. You can sit in any part of your house, look out, and you don't see anybody else because of the the way that the windows are placed inside, you can sit on your balcony and it feels like you're completely alone. So what you gain is both the economy of scale of a building product, but you also have the privacy and comfort of a single family home. And it's really the best of both worlds. And of course, all the maintenance is taken care of. There's underground parking, to help you stave off the winter blues. And it really makes an inviting environment. And what we see here is very little churn. People who come to the product love the product and usually like to stay. We have very high retention rates. It's just a beautiful product, and we're able to offer it at a market price. Richland Center posed a challenge for us, numbers all the way around. And basically, ultimately, as you heard, working with Ellers back and forth and working with Jason and the city council and all the options that were for us, the money just wasn't there for an upfront developer agreement like we've seen in other municipalities, like we were asking for to make the numbers work. Why? Because the rent rate in Richland Center is not as high as it is in the larger cities. So we had to find some way to make these numbers work. And then when Ellers initially reviewed the ask, because from our pro forma, we needed $4 million from us and $4 million from the city. And after working for a long time with Ellers, the numbers just weren't there. It just wouldn't support it. And basically it put the community at risk of getting a little too far over their skis and having to trust me, a developer that they don't have experience with. And that was an uncomfortable feeling. I mean, ultimately, we did come up with a solution because when Ellers came back with the numbers, it says we can give you, this will support this much, but then there's the bonding and the insurance and the studies and all this and that, and it just chunk after chunk came off of what was available. And I said, okay, well, since we have to bring all this money anyways, what if we go ahead and look at a pay-go model? And the ideas went around in the conversations, and I tell you what, you've got a hardworking team up here behind me. And with Ellers, it's an amazing team. Nobody realizes how many hours goes into this and how many ideas go around and how many compromises have to be made. So basically, we had to square with the fact that, but one way or another, we had to come up with another $1 million out of pocket. And how can we maximize the entire pro forma over 15, 20 years and make this balance without, while coming up with another $1 million without asking the city to overextend themselves. And so the way that we achieved that is together with the pay-go model. So with the pay-go model, and one of the things, Keith, that was a brilliant presentation, and Jason, of how the pay-go model works. One thing I wanted to make sure to emphasize, because if you don't look at the tax districts, or if you're not familiar with how tax districts works, it might not be aware, is that what happens is the district is the building itself. It's not like that side of town, okay? It's not like we're gonna take the taxes from that side of town and it's gonna come back and pay the building. The district is these two buildings alone. The tax district is just these two buildings. So what happens is the taxes that we pay in January for the assessment that's done on these buildings is that tax money that we pay for building the buildings that then in November would come back to us as part of the developer incentive. It does not affect the tax base of the city, other than increasing the base over time and benefiting everybody, in addition to bring the city. So I guess, there was a finance meeting that reviewed the numbers from Ellers, and we're getting to that, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here and the opportunity to work with Richland Center. Any questions before?
Questions from the council for Mr. King? Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've heard from Ellers, we've heard from Mr. King. Jason, did you have more you wanted to add?
I do not. I mean, I'm glad to answer questions, any that the council has. I do have a cover sheet. We can put it up there where it clearly specifies the motion that we're looking for tonight. Where did it go? So, as we've we've expressed tonight, Ellers has concluded that this financial package represents a reasonable participation level by the city, and that but for this development incentive, buildings 2 and 3, in total 92 units, are not likely to be constructed. So the general terms of the development incentive are that the 2 buildings would be constructed in succession, probably beginning this summer. 24 is the target date. It would be based on a 20-year PAYGO model utilizing 90% of the increment generated by buildings 2 and 3 for an incentive future value of $5.4 million. Permitting and inspection fees of approximately $71,000 to be paid by TIF. Keith referred to both of these numbers, as well as this third number, which is developer to be released from phase 1 infrastructure debt of $310,940. TIF funds to be used to make the payments on associated general obligation bond. So again, the district that's created that, to Jonathan's point, surrounds these 3 buildings. The tax revenue from these 3 buildings are able to support all of the development incentive that we're proposing tonight. It's no money used from the city's general fund, no money used from any other taxpayer, no money used from a savings account that we've got at the city. It's all from the tax that's generated from these 3 buildings. So at this point, the staff recommendation is to accept the general terms as outlined above and authorize city personnel to proceed with finalizing the development agreement. So we wanted to get this before you. This is the financial element. There was a previous development agreement, as well as it needs to be all looked through, amended in accordance with Jonathan and his agreement with Panorama as it existed. And it has to be reviewed by the city attorney to make sure that all of these things are working properly and that we're properly protected contractually. So that's the next step. The total incentive package to be funded by TIF is approximately $5.79 million. The requested motion, which passed at council, so council had the opportunity, Finance Committee had the chance to review this on 1/29, and their motion was to recommend to the Common Council the approval of the development incentive terms as outlined, and the authorization of city personnel to execute a letter of intent and prepare a development agreement for council approval. So tonight, we are looking for the council to take action on that recommendation. It is the motion to approve the development incentive terms as outlined and authorize city personnel to execute a letter of intent and prepare a development agreement for council approval. So the letter of intent would be drafted by Attorney Wendell and would be a security note that Jonathan could take to his lenders and say, look, we've got the letter of intent from the council, the decision makers. It's now time for me to get the wheels in action do all the things on his side. At the same time, we're working to complete the development agreement, which both Jonathan's attorneys and our city attorney have to agree to.
Okay, would you please read back again the suggested motion?
The suggested or requested action by Common Council is the motion to approve the development incentive terms as outlined in your cover sheet and authorize city personnel to execute a letter of intent and prepare a development agreement for council approval.
Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is that your motion as read?
Yes.
Did you get it? Nice typing, Mr. Joyce. This guy's fingers are getting faster every month. Nice job, Mr. Joyce. We have a motion from Mr. Downs. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Ms. Templey. Okay, before we proceed, we still have Keith from Ellers, correct?
I believe.
Keith, you still there?
I am still here. Yep.
Okay, Keith, a couple of questions. I think you covered this already. The city's not using any of its borrowing capacity to complete this as presented, correct?
Correct.
This will not increase local property taxes to do this as presented, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. King, Panorama Estates initially was proposed as 3 buildings. Of course, one is there and is in use. It is 45 apartments. You are proposing to build buildings 2 and 3 both within this next year?
Yes.
Okay, and how many total apartments between the 2 buildings?
92 apartments.
92 apartments.
Yeah, it's been amended from the original 45. We've already submitted plans to the state to make it 46 per, totaling 92 apartments.
And I believe I heard today, did Mr. Kleinhauser say that was approved?
It was.
The state has approved the plan.
The state has approved the amendment
Amended plan,
to
yeah.
phase 2,
Yeah.
which will be copied and set on phase 3. We have to go through the typical scheduling and plan review, but it should not be unusually withheld because of it's substantially similar to phase 2.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Keith or for Mr. King before we proceed? All right, hearing none, then we'll need a roll call vote, Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson Tepley,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Chambers,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Safe
Looking
travels to
forward to it.
Rhinelander, sir. There are plenty of deer between here and there.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming down all that way.
Thank you.
Okay,
Keith, thank you so much for your assistance tonight.
Thanks, Keith.
thank you.
Yep. Have a good evening.
All right, moving on the agenda then. Next would be City and Utility Department Head reports and concerns. Mr. Glassbrenner, did you have anything for us tonight?
I got too much on this.
Yeah, I got you. I got you because you have the microphone. So nothing tonight?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, why don't we get the microphone across the room?
Just a very brief report from the library. We have hired a programming coordinator. Caitlin DiArujo has joined us and is working steadfast on the summer reading program, so we're now fully staffed. This weekend we have an event put on by our Friends and Foundation, the Super Bowl lunch as a fundraiser. We hope many will come out and join us. That's from 11 to 1:30 on Saturday. Soup, dinner rolls, desserts, and etc. for a free will donation. And I think that is the bulk of what's happening at the library at the moment.
Excellent, thank you very much. Ashley, did you have anything?
Yes, I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to Mr. Joyce. As you're aware, we've had some transition within Clerk Treasurer's office, and so Aaron has had to carry a lot more weight than before, and so I just want to thank him for doing that and continuing to have a smile on his face while he's doing it. And I would be remiss if I didn't also express my gratitude to both Jenna Cabral, who works in Parks and Rec at the Community Center, and Tess Barr-Hamblin as well, who primarily works with our Buildings and Grounds team, but both of them have been routinely coming in and helping with tax collection. So through December and into January, we had both of them lending an extra hand to help out with tax collection. And Tess's schedule has been adjusted so that way she can help provide coverage 4 days of the week. So that's been a tremendous help to us. So thank you to all of them.
Excellent. Aaron, did you have anything?
Nope.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, Mayor and Alderpersons Committee, Commission, Board reports and comments and/or items to be discussed at a future meeting. Karen Tepley.
Yeah, just to add on to the library board report, we are also going to have cameras installed. I made mention of that last meeting, but that is going to happen this coming week?
The 12th.
I'm sorry?
Next week, the 12th.
The next week, okay. So on that note, and then tourism also met yesterday, and we did approve for continuing funding. I think you're aware that we do a lot of streaming video to areas outside of our community, so we're kind of in the Milwaukee area. So we are going to look to the northern Chicago area.
Karen, on the, or either one of you, on the cameras at the library, inside and outside, well, how's that gonna look?
So we have, I don't have the information in front of me, 14 or 17 cameras. I know, it's either, it's one of the two, 14, 17 cameras would be, yes, inside, outside, on all levels. So it will scope the outside.
2 quarters of the building that will capture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Tom McCarthy. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have more?
No. So just tourism is going well.
Yeah, okay.
And we had snow in northern Wisconsin, didn't, so that was kind of good for the,
True, very true. The locals were happy with that.
yes.
Mr. Tom McCarthy.
No, nothing to that.
Mark Chambers.
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Kevin Melby.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Steve Downs.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Ryan Cairns. Do we still have Ryan? Yes, we do.
Yep, nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Excellent, okay. Next on the agenda is Treasurer's Report. Mr. Joyce, this is going to be moved to the next meeting, is that correct? Okay, there will not be a Treasurer's Report tonight, we'll get it on the next meeting. Okay, which leads us to payment of the bills. Have the council review those briefly, and we'll entertain a motion to pay them. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have the sheet.
Motion to approve the bills.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Cairns, is there a second? Okay, the bills presented on this day, excluding any library fund invoices having been referred to the Finance and Budget Committee, and said committee having duly investigated and audited these bills, hereby make the following recommendation, that the city bills presented on this day be paid with the following adjustments and or exceptions. There are none listed. We have the motion and the second. Any discussion of the bills? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call vote. Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson McCarthy.
Aye.
Chambers.
Aye.
Melby. Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Tetley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carried, bills will be paid. Okay. 5 and 6 were deleted from the agenda. We are now on item 7, appointment to vacant common council seats. We're going to begin with District 1, which of course begins on the south side of Hazelton and goes down to the Walmart area, depending on your point of view. Perhaps begins at Walmart area and goes to the south side of Hazelton. Okay. Individuals who are with us tonight who have interest in filling that seat. I'm aware of one, Mr. Ron Fruit has joined us tonight. Is there anyone else who is here tonight because they have interest in filling the seat in District 1? Okay, what we're going to do, Jason, could you hand the microphone to Mr. Fruit briefly, just let him introduce himself to the council?
My name is Ron Fruit. I've had an opportunity to be a part of the community for many years. We owned and operated WRCO Radio for 30 years, and it's a privilege really to have had an opportunity to watch the city council in action. And if my service can be of good to the community, I would be willing to serve.
Any questions for Mr. Fruit? Okay, we have one more gentleman here, if you'd, and sir, if you'd stand and please introduce yourself to the council.
Hello, my name is Rob Chase. I am new to the area, and if you have need of me, I would like to help out. That's about all I can say. I would have to learn. I would have a lot I would like to have to learn about the community, and I would make an effort to do so. And if you see fit to have me as a member, I would do my best to help.
Questions for Rob? Okay, if we could get the microphone back to the desk here. Yep. Okay, so you've heard from the two gentlemen who have expressed interest at this point. Nominations are open. Anyone on the council would like to nominate either gentleman to fill the seat in District 1?
I would like to nominate Ron Fruit.
Okay, we have a nomination from Ms. Tetley. A second of it? Or just let him go out?
You need to ask 3 times.
Okay, there it is. We're going to ask 3 times. That's 1. Second ask. Any further nominations for the seat in District 1?
I'd like to nominate Rob.
Okay. I will ask for the 3rd time. All right, so we have 1 nomination for each gentleman, so we need to vote on this. Can they just do it by name, or do we need to do it otherwise? Okay, so we have Ron and Rob. We're going to enunciate. Okay, and we'll begin. Oh, Mr. Joyce, you can conduct the vote.
Okay. Okay, Tetley.
Ron Fruit.
McCarthy.
Ron Fruit.
Chambers.
Ron Fruit.
Melby.
Mr. Fruit.
Downs.
Rob.
And Karen's.
Ron approved.
Okay. So it's 5-1 for Ron Fruit.
So Ron Fruit has been appointed by the council to fill the empty seat in District 1, which is through the end of the current term, which will be through the election. So if you're able, congratulations, Mr. Fruit. Welcome to the City Council. Rob, thanks for coming down and expressing interest. I'd like to get to know you a little bit as we go forward. Okay, all right.
There are some things I'm hoping to do with the library I've already talked to them about.
Okay. Right now, at the last council meeting, I stated that we would be filling District 1 tonight, likely not filling District 3 tonight. That is advice of the city attorney, that's the will of the council, but that was what was stated, so that was the expectations of the public. That's my recommendation for that reason. Anybody on the council object to that? Okay, then we're going to stop there for tonight. Mr. Fruit, what will happen is Mr. Joyce will need to swear you in, and Mr. Joyce will schedule with you. And weren't you his boss?
What do you want to do, Ron?
There needs to be video of this, but anyway, so Aaron will be in touch with you, Ron, to get you sworn in, and then you'll have a tablet for Ron? We do, or did we get it?
We don't have Connie's back yet.
We do.
Oh, we do.
I think we do.
We got it. Oh, okay. Then, yep, we'll get it squared away with the tablet ASAP.
Okay, that sounds great.
And the book?
And the binder.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, everyone.
Clarifying, District 3 will be at the next meeting.
Yes, District 3 open seat will be filled at the next council meeting and will be, so, open to the public, anyone who's interested. You can certainly contact me in the meantime, 608-604-5399, to express interest if you live in District 3, and we will cover that and fill that at the next council meeting. Okay, item 8, consider approval of a city donation policy. Who's going to take that?
So that will be me. This was something that was discussed at a previous meeting. I believe it was in December, and it was determined at that time we'd bring it back to a subsequent meeting. So that's what we're doing here. The policy, you've seen it before, we reviewed it before, but to refresh your memory, it's adding language to outline the expectation or the parameters for accepting donations, and it's giving benchmarks for department heads as to when they need to seek approval from council and when they can use their discretion, and it does outline considering things like long-term care, the maintenance of a donation, and if it is in alignment with the policies or the goals of the city, whether or not they would accept a potential donation. But there hasn't been any language changed in the policy since the last time that you had it before you.
And Mr. Mayor, just to jump off of that, the reason that it's again before the council is I had provided a policy discussion guide for the last meeting, and the council wanted a chance to review that, bringing us here today.
Okay, Mr. Whittle, anything further to say about the existing city donation policy or any needed necessary change to it for the public's benefit?
We started from the ground up. The existing policy has more to do with information management than it does the actual acceptance of donations. And therefore we adapted, I believe it was Jefferson County's policy to meet our community's needs, pending any final revisions proposed by the council.
Okay, any discussion, any comments, questions from the council regarding the donation policy? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the new city donation policy.
I'll make that motion.
We need to suspend the rules, waive the reading.
Yes.
Yeah, is your motion to suspend the rules and waive the reading?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Okay, motion for Mr. Chambers, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Melby, discussion of the city's donation policy. Okay, hearing none, Aaron, let's do a roll call vote.
Alderperson Chambers,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
Tepley,
Aye.
McCarthy.
Hi.
Motion carries.
All right, next on the agenda then, Finance Committee recommendations are, Karen, are you taking that tonight?
I am.
Okay.
All right, so number 9 is review bids received for Phase 3 of the 2024 8th Street Utility Roadway Project Improvement Project. And I believe we have Andy Zimmer with us. He can take it from here.
Yes, indeed, and good evening to everyone.
And then Andy, I believe, represents MSA Engineering, correct?
Correct.
For the public's benefit again, thank you. Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you. So per the council agenda item tonight, I believe you have in your packets a black and white sheet that is the bid tabulation for bids that were received on the Phase 3 8th Street Utility Improvements Project, Utility and Roadway Improvements Project. Bids were solicited and received on December 19th. 5 of the 8 pre-qualified bidders submitted bids, with G-Pro Excavating being the low bidder. And you can see by that sheet that there was an additive alternate that was added that's strictly utility cost. And the bids were presented to the Utility Commission on January 10th, and they made approval, or they made motion to approve awarding the construction contract to G-Pro Excavating for the base bid and the alternate, and then further recommended to pass that approval on to the council with final approval contingent on the city acceptance of the street department costs, which are shown in a separate sheet that has the line items with a item and cost allocation split out by blue for the water utility, green for the sewer utility, and tan for the street department cost. Summing up the street department costs, the action tonight for council consideration would be approval of $377,854.49 as the city's share of the construction contract.
Okay, questions for Mr. Zimmer?
Quick question, Mr. Zimmer, this is Councilman Chambers. Which, if any of these companies, has the city worked with in our previous history on street department development, or street development, I should say?
Street projects have been performed by G-Pro Excavating. They have the 2023 contract. Gerke Excavating, the next one to the right, they performed the Phase 1 in 2022, and then A1 Excavating has previously done work in the city as well.
Thank you, sir.
Did you have something further, Andy?
No, sir.
Okay, further questions for Mr. Zimmer? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Then we'll seek a motion to approve bids received for Phase 3, 2024 8th Street Utility and Roadway Improvements Project.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
Do you want the amount in there?
Sure.
Okay, so it's $377,854.
Thanks, Karen. There's the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Melby. Okay, Mr. Zimmer, so Phase 3, 8th Street, so just to make sure the public again is aware, just for their benefit, so this will be resurface of 8th Street, there will be new storm sewers as well, is that correct?
That is correct. The storm sewer will extend from the intersection of Church Street all the way up to Cemetery Road, known as Nimitz Drive.
Okay, new storm sewer, new pavement, new curb and gutter?
Correct. Full reconstruct, including water and sewer utilities, with the addition of storm sewer.
Okay, so yep, and also the water and sewer, correct. Okay, we might as well put this out there right now. It's not connected to the bid, but is there a likelihood that some of the trees along the road by the cemetery side may be lost during the project?
The project specifications include the contractor to take care to trim the roots where they may be in conflict with curb and gutter and storm sewer, which will be running up the north side of the street. And then also to do overhead clearance pruning of the branches that may be in conflict with the excavator. We are anticipating and using the rule of thumb that a tree can sustain approximately 1/3 of the root mass removal and still survive. Even with that care and protection that's written into the contract, there's no guarantee of survivalship, but we are doing the best we can for the interest of the public and the project.
Okay, again, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Andy, can you just touch on, this includes the intersection of 8th and Church to removal of all the grates in the roadway, is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase or repeat?
This includes the removal of the grates in the roadway at the intersection of 8th and Church, is that correct?
Correct. On the west side of the intersection of Church Street, there are 2 transverse grates, and then on the east side of the intersection, there are 3 transverse grates. For those of you that drive that commonly can definitely feel the bump and the maintenance issues, and these have been removed. They were removed on, most recently on phase 1. We removed the transverse grades that were on the east side of the intersection of 7th Street. And then previously the city had also removed the transverse grades that were at the intersection of Highway 80 and Seminary Street as well, just due to the maintenance issues. So the storm sewer that is being installed will essentially replace them. However, the capacity performance of those transverse grades is tremendous. However, we did the best we can and invested engineering time and dollars, and ultimately the city dollars, to perform the most economical storm sewer design that is possible at this time without oversizing the pipe.
The only other question I have, and I don't know if it's known yet, but do we have a guess yet of when this project may begin?
That is entirely weather dependent, but I did have a conversation with the G-Pro superintendent, and they're anticipating beginning construction mid-April.
Well, okay, early, mid-April, okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion?
I have a comment for that. It's likely for Memorial Day that there will be a relocation of that.
Yeah, let's touch that again, make sure everybody heard that. The Memorial Day service that's traditionally been held in the cemetery is probably going to have to relocate this year because the roadway to the cemetery is going to be torn up. Okay, and I don't know if Ashley went to get something related to that, but is there further discussion of the 8th Street project? Okay, hearing none, Aaron, when you're ready, we'll do a roll call vote. So, yeah, here we go. We'll do this first.
I have an image of the project, the location of it, and I'll put it on that easel, so if anybody's interested, they can take a peek.
Okay, Aaron, go ahead.
Alderperson Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Chambers?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to number 11, bid for the city wayfinding and entrance signs fabrication and installation. Jason?
Okay, so we're done with Andy, right?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Zimmer, thanks for joining us
Thanks,
tonight.
Andy.
My pleasure. Have a great evening, everyone.
And Ashley, it's a lot easier for me to present if I'm not holding this video. Can I get rid of it at this point? Well, should not disturb anybody viewing online if there is anyone.
Yeah, there's no other virtual guests that are presenting.
So let's see if we can get rid of this. Sorry, just a minute to reset these. Okay, so this next agenda item is dealing with the review review and possible action on city wayfinding and entrance sign fabrication and installation project bid. So this request for proposal was released on 11/9/2023. We had 4 bids that were received. This has been a project that's been in the works for nearly 2 years probably at this point, and much longer with prior efforts. So what this would do is the signs that are up and down Orange Street and out on Highway 14 that identify key locations in the community, might say library this way, park that way, kayak landing, bike trail, that type of thing. We would be really adding a lot of those signs, and then our entrance signs to the community would be redone as well with the new branding that was identified and adopted by the council, again, nearly 2 years ago through an effort that was a county-wide effort. It happened both at the county and at the city. So based on those designs, and these are the designs that were approved, with these designs in mind, we went out for a bid. 4 bids were received: Greeley Signs, BL Signs, Lacrosse Signs, and Graphics House. You can see there's quite a bit of disparity between the bids. The bids were carefully compared and clarifying questions were asked to try to identify why there was those large discrepancies. But ultimately, the low bid at $36,801 was verified. Project is to be completed no later than 4/30/2024 if the council approves this. This was reviewed by Planning Commission on 1/10/23, and they recommended it on to the City Finance Committee and the council for approval to award the bid to Greeley Signs for the not-to-exceed amount of $36,801. So the staff recommendation is to go ahead and award this wayfinding sign project to Greeley Signs. The financial impact, again, is $36,801. The funding source is ARPA funds that were previously designated for this project. So the council, probably a year and a half ago at this point, went through and said, how do we think that these ARPA funds should be allocated? And this was one of the projects that they had identified. So it would be the intent to use the ARPA funds from a balance that still exists of $315,000. So the requested motion by council, this also visited finance earlier this evening, they passed, and so passed this on to full council. So the council motion that we're requesting is the motion to award the wayfinding and entrance sign fabrication and installation bid to Greeley Signs for the not-to-exceed amount of $36,801.
Okay, entertaining that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs, is there discussion? I have a question, do we have an indication yet of when the signs would be installed?
Per the agreement, project should be completed no later than 4/30 so April 30th.
Coming right up to spring, wow, there's a lot going on in town. All right, excellent, we have the motion and the second, is there discussion?
Quick question, Jason, if you can, and I don't know if you do have an answer to this, that discrepancy amount is pretty fast.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
What's the indications on why those were so, is it material cost, is it labor, is it?
So I think that, I can't answer you, unfortunately. I called each of these people and I said, is your bid really like $10,000 for one wayfinding sign? They're like, yes, that's one sign. I'm like, that's not the whole project or something, you know? And they just didn't have an answer for it. And these are sign manufacturers that we'd identified that have done work in the area. So we believe them all to be reputable sign companies, and I unfortunately can't explain the massive discrepancy.
As they did not give you an explanation for it.
Well, they would say things like, well, our service is full service and we provide engineering and, you know, high level technical specified documents and all of this service, but ultimately what we're looking for is a sign that was specified. It's the same material, it's the same reflective surfacing, the same finishes, the same posts. They're all installed, so when it comes right down to it, through the conversations I had and with the spec that we administered for bidding on, it was not possible for me to ascertain why there was such a large difference.
And I'll just, if I may make a quick comment. So DOT has their regulations for the signs themselves. So the sign company has to follow that, so the signs will be regulations. So that's, I think, what we have to be concerned about.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Downs. Aye. Cairns.
Aye.
Kepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Chambers.
Aye.
Melby. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Sorry,
No,
there we
no,
go.
no.
All right, so moving along, number 12, land acquisition from Hill Country Rentals. Jason.
So, again, you have a cover sheet in your packet, and it has been uploaded to the website. The background of this is on 1/10 of 2024, the Finance Committee authorized a negotiation team to go out and try to secure the purchase of specific properties in the city of Richland Center. These properties are listed in your cover sheet, and here on the screen, they involve 7 different parcels, mostly between Orange Street, which would be here, and Jefferson Street, and then this is Court Street. So they're numbered here on your cover sheet 1 through 6, and then the 7th property is across the street on Jefferson and Court. So the negotiation team went into negotiations with the current landowner, which is Hill Country Rentals, and there was a negotiated amount agreed to, which was a total purchase price for all parcels of $650,000 plus associated cost to close the properties. We identified that there would be 2 separate closings. One closing would involve parcels 1 through 6, and it would occur mid-2024 with the following conditions. The seller is obligated to, prior to closing, to remove the structures on parcel 1. So there is a house and a type of pole shed structure on that lot that the seller would be responsible for removing at their cost. City's obligation prior to closing would be to complete an environmental study on all parcels. As the community is probably well aware of, especially those that have been here for a long time, Orange Street had been identified as an area where there was a lot of brownfield challenges. Brownfield meaning past contamination, fuel oils, fertilizer, that type of thing that we no longer dispose of the way we did back then. So the city's obligation is prior to closing to complete an environmental study on all parcels. City obligation to apply for an environmental liability exemption according to state statute 292. What that will entail is me and the attorney working to draft a resolution that will come back. There's some specific wording that then allows us protection if there were more brownfield contaminants found, and it removes some of the liability from us and allows us to handle it differently than a private party can. The assigned value to this closing 1 would be $425,000. The second closing 2, would be for parcel 7 in your item there. And the parcel 7 would close in early 2025. The city's obligation would be after closing, if requested, to lease parcel 7 back to the seller at a rate of $750 per month. The assigned value of that closing is $225,000. I also just wanted to take an opportunity to allow Mr. Wendell to share what the contractual elements of that could look like and how the city's interest is secured, even though we're doing 2 separate transactions at separate times.
So this was came up as part of the negotiations, and the solution I proposed that was agreed to by all parties is essentially there will be a contract made between the parties that specifies and then commits them to executing the 3 separate steps of the actual transfer of the ownership. So One of the concerns that was raised was, well, we purchased parcels 1 to 6, and then what happens if one or the other party pulls out before they close on parcel 7? This contract would preclude that from happening, or at least set the terms under which that second transaction could be delayed or terminated. And then as well incorporating the negotiation of a lease. The main term of the lease, obviously cost, has already been agreed to, so that process should go pretty quickly. But just to let the council know, it is not envisioned that we simply purchase the first set of parcels and then cross our fingers. We are looking to have a contractual relationship requiring all of these transactions to take place.
Okay, Jason, just really quickly, you did a nice job explaining where these properties are, but just a simple way to say it, the downtown Quick Trip, this is most of the block to the north.
Correct.
On the same side of Orange Street.
Correct.
And then the one property, which would be on the corner of Jefferson and Court, on the north side of Court Street.
Correct.
Okay, just to make sure everybody can just draw the picture. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a little bit of history of why these are so critical to the development of Richland Center is, one is that historically that corridor has been a focus of redevelopment. And so that's why, for example, we have the Phoenix Center where why you have an auto parts store there. It's why we recently, in the last 3 years, we had the construction of a pharmacy and a dialysis center. And then you have our house. And beyond that, you have the TechCom building, which is a new office space. All of that has been in the planning works since the late 90s, probably before that. We've got a lot of record of it, of the 90s, and so we've researched this and gone through a lot of past notes to verify and find all of the efforts of a lot of people that have gone before us for the redevelopment of this corridor. So this block of property is very critical to the future development and or thriving of downtown Richland Center. So there has been a lot of recent planning done also. So my office was able to work with the Environmental Protection Agency as well as the DNR to have grants awarded to us that value over $100,000 for the replanning of this corridor and specifically those properties. And so a lot of the work that they did was technical assistance, looking at if brownfield was there, what do we need to be concerned about, how do we mitigate risk for that. Then they did market studies to find out what type of development could be supported there. And most recently, they provided a conceptual plan of what buildings on the properties could look like. And that was based on a trip here, different surveys that they did in the community, and as well as their experiences as designers, architectural, designers. So there's been a lot of effort that goes back a long time. So with that, the staff recommendation is to approve the outlined terms and authorize the acquisition of all parcels. The financial impact and funding source is the use of approximately $675,000 of cash on hand, part of which could come from the RLF Business Savings Fund, which currently had a balance of $586,741. And there's also the ability to potentially use funding from the TIF Affordable Housing Extension Fund balance. As of 12/31/23, the balance was $1,037,545. The reason for that is that we project that there could be housing built on the site. So request the action by the Finance Committee. They took action, forwarded it to the council, so the requested action by the Common Council tonight is motion to authorize personnel to carry out the acquisition of land owned by Hill Country Properties using cash on hand at a total cost not to exceed of $675,000.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Melby. Only question I have, so it is possible there could be housing put there. That would be fine. It's also not known for sure if there will be housing, it's just not completed. So are there any ramifications if we use funding from that fund, and then there is not housing built there.
In the conceptual plan, there is multifamily housing shown on the site. So we have a very reasonable expectation that that's the way that we want to continue to develop the site. However, if we do not develop the site in that way, we would have to reimburse that fund to appropriately handle the way that those funds have been earmarked.
If we had to do that, have we identified where we would find the money to reimburse that fund?
We have not looked at that because the development of the site is probably 2 to 3 years off.
Yes, it is.
And so if necessary, I'm sure that we could identify funds within the current budget structure, knowing that we've got a couple of years to figure that out. But I don't know if the administrator would like to comment on that. That's a great question. And I don't have a specific answer from my part.
I would concur with what he said. We have several years at least, if that were to be the case, where we can plan accordingly.
Yeah, and I don't have any reason to think there won't be housing there. It's not just making sure we cover the bases while we're doing this. Okay, any other conversation, any other discussion?
I have a question just quickly on the closing two-part, city's obligation after closing, if requested, lease parcel 7 back to the seller. Indefinitely?
No, very much. That was something that I was very quick to say is that I believe leases should have a fixed duration. I am a strong advocate for that. I operate at direction of the council, so if you told me not to write it in, I would. But no, I believe it's anticipated that it would be a standard annual lease with some additional flexibility built in. The sellers have indicated a willingness to work with us if we have a developer come in and say, we can put shovels in grounds tomorrow. They're willing to work with us to make sure that they can clear out quickly so we can get that secured. But it was made very clear ahead of time at the meeting that I do not believe in indefinite leasing.
And that's something, we have a similar example of that with our cropland leasing.
Right.
So that is for a term, but there's also that flexibility built into that. So if we have the need and we need to take some land back, we have the ability to do so.
Thank you.
Jason, do we have proportions for, because the $675,000 obviously exceeds the RLF balance. Is that a removal of that entirety of the amount of 586 and change out of that, or are we going to remain, will there be some remaining in that so it has a balance left?
So, again, a great technical question. So what I would anticipate, and actually Ashley and I, or Aaron, we haven't had the opportunity to have that specific discussion, but what I anticipated in my mind is that we would probably do closing 1 primarily from the RLF fund, and that would still leave a balance in that RLF fund. One of the benefits to doing a 2-phase closing for us is that right now the state funds where we have our money saved in the savings account of the state, the interest rate that's being acquired is very good, and so by us not necessarily making the second purchase right now, we do have the ability to capture some additional interest, probably in the area of $6,000 to $12,000. It just depends how long that time period actually is before the closing. So to answer your question specifically, I believe it probably is most reasonable to expect that the 425 would come out of the RLF and that the second portion could come out of a combination of the two. But we do have some time to discern that internally and make sure we're being consulted by our financial advisors for the city as well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll need a roll call. Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson Cairns?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
Sharkey?
Aye.
Chambers?
Aye.
Melby? Aye. Downs?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, number 13, consider a request to authorize continued financial management services from Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Ashley, did you want to take that?
So as you might recall, in September, council, you made the decision to authorize contracting with Southwestern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission for financial services. And so since then, we've had the opportunity to work with Misty. And she has come in, she's here 1 to 2 days per week. She's been most recently helping us keep up with the day-to-day operations, and we've had some transition in our personnel. She's also worked with us on training in Cassell software, the new accounting program that we implemented, as well as she was providing a tremendous amount of support for the 2024 budget. So today, I'm requesting that you consider authorizing extending that contract, which will help us continue on with the work that we've initiated with her, as well as provide for an opportunity for the new personnel coming into the treasurer role to receive some one-on-one training with her as far as it relates to that position.
A dollar amount associated with the request?
Say again?
Dollar amount associated?
Yeah, so right now we're anticipating, based on an average of a day and a half per week on site, that for the period between January 1 to April 30th, it would be about $23,000 or less. And we do have $30,000 budgeted in the Pool 4 outlay account. So this is a budgeted item, and it would be under what was budgeted.
The motion then could be amount not to exceed $23,000, or does that cover it? Okay, entertain a motion to authorize continued financial management services from Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, amount not to exceed $23,000.
I'll make the motion.
Motion for Mr. Chambers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Downs, is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Tepley,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Chambers,
Aye.
Melby, Downs,
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, number 14, landfill monitoring services agreement. I guess, do you want to take this actually, or fine?
Yeah, that's fine. So this is, again, a request to continue a contract that we've had for several years. In approximately 2016, the city went out to bid for landfill monitoring service. MyTech was selected at that time, and we've just continued to use their service. We've not had issues or any problems with their service. We're required, as part of the landfill closure plan, to do long-term landfill monitoring by statute. It's 40 years. So, and that can be adjusted. There's nuance to that, of course. But as part of our landfill closure, we have to execute this process. We have to do monitoring, and MyTech has been the company we've utilized since approximately 2016. So this is just a request to continue utilizing that provider. It's at a cost of $9,700 per year. We have planned for this expense within our budget.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we're looking for that motion in the amount of $9,700 to contract with MyTech for the landfill.
Okay. Were you making that motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs, any discussion?
Ashley,
Yes,
we had discussed, this is actually a budgeted item.
correct.
Is that where this is coming from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
That's a good question, Kevin. Okay, further discussion?
You can find it.
Ashley, is your discussion pertaining to the item? Okay, thank you. Okay, on the landfill monitoring services agreement, we have the motion and the second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call.
Alderperson McCarthy,
Aye.
Chambers,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, go ahead.
So there might be, if you have a paper agenda, or depending on what you're looking at, it appears that there was somewhat of a glitch in the agendas. So I notice on the paper ones here, if you have one that says 15 draft payment plan policy, That's an error, it's an erroneous addition onto that agenda, and it's actually supposed to be falling under number, what I have listed on the incorrect agenda is number 17. So things might be slightly out of order right at this point because of that.
Okay, so the next one we should be doing is furnace replacements?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't have
I
Spencer?
think he did.
Okay. So basically we had, you want me to take this or you want to take it? You have a little more knowledge.
So, last year in 2023, we had our routine furnace inspections. We have a contract with Klingemann who comes in and inspects all of our furnaces. During that process, we were, doing routine maintenance and inspections, but we were also taking a close look at the stage of life each of our furnaces were in. So perhaps a little bit harder than in the past, and we know some of our furnaces were likely to be failing, and we've seen some of that come up in recent years. So 2 furnaces were identified as needing to be replaced, and they both are in this building. So one is servicing the police department, whereas the other is on the municipal building side of things. There were some concerns about high CO2 levels being emitted, however, not at a point where it was causing a safety issue, but you can never be too cautious with that. So at this point, the request is before you to approve replacing both of those identified furnaces. Like I said, because we were aware of this going into the 2024 budget, we were able to budget for this. Your cover sheets, you have 2 cover sheets. One is for one furnace and one is for the other. The request today is for both of those furnaces, and it would be using, rather than what's listed in that cover sheet, it's using the outlay that we set aside for this.
Yes, and in the amount of $12,000, correct?
Okay, so furnace replacements, so we just need, did we have a motion in that?
So there is a motion to approve the purchase of a new Bryant 2-stage 128,000 BTU furnace from Klingemann Heating and Cooling. Like I say, not to be over $12,000, put it outlay.
Okay, there we go. Motion from Ms. Tepley. Is there a second?
Is that for both of
We'll
those?
add in also the Bryant 2-stage 40,000 BTU furnace. So that one's at 3,700. So a total cost not to exceed 12,000.
Amended motion?
Amended motion.
Excellent. Motion from Ms. Tepley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Chambers. Any discussion?
First estimate is for 3,700, the second one's for 5,100.
Correct.
We don't expect to get to that 12,000, but that's within the budgeted amount.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call. Mr. Joyce?
Alderperson Chambers,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
Tepley,
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so Ashley, but you pointed out the error in some of the printed copies. So next on the agenda should be request to amend the financial policy to include payment plans?
Correct.
Okay, there we go.
So.
Go for it.
Okay, so you do have a cover sheet in that one. Again, this is another one where we had previously talked about this item and we're bringing it back. The request today is to amend the policy. So our financial policy, in the cover sheet, it shows you it's under accounts receivable. It would be adding in this E, accounts receivable for payment plans. So right now, the policy doesn't really address payment plans as it reads today, and we do provide payment plan options for folks that are in need of that. So requesting to amend our financial policy to incorporate, as it's listed in the cover sheet, and then we've previously reviewed the actual procedures for establishing payment plans, which is separate from the policy.
Yes, so the recommendation from finance was to common council to amend the City of Richland Center's financial policy to authorize payments plans in accordance with the standard operating procedures for payment plans.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes.
Motion from Ms. Templey, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. McCarthy, is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call, Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Chambers.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, I have number 17 as a skid steer purchase. All right.
So the Buildings and Grounds team, they have for many years leased a skid steer from Simpsons. And Simpsons is no longer providing that leasing opportunity. And so at this point, we need to determine if we would like to purchase that skid steer outright from them, or if we would be looking at obtaining a new skid steer or a different skid steer. The Buildings and Grounds team, they've reported that the skid steer is in great condition. They would like to retain the one they've had. They've been the only entity that has had the skid steer since it was produced. It's got 1,457.3 hours on it. And they have indicated that this is a critical piece of machinery for them. They utilize it in many areas, including, digging graves as well as snow removal, etc. So the request today would be to purchase the skid steer from Simpsons at a cost not to exceed $20,000. This was, unlike the others, not something that we anticipated. We weren't aware of the change in their leasing program, and so we weren't able to properly incorporate this into a budget. We discussed this at the last Public Works Committee and discussed the possibility of looking to purchase a new machine or to keep utilizing this. And at this point, it was recommended that we come here and request to purchase the one that we have, and certainly at a much less expense than a brand new machine would be. Since this was not something that we foresaw, the funding source identified in your cover sheet is the unallocated contingency, which we did budget $125,000 in this year, which is more than what we have in years past, thankfully, for situations like this.
What's the expected cost?
$20,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
So, from finance, we recommended to council, so my motion is to approve the purchase of the 2013 Gal 4640 skid steer from Simpson Tractor at a cost not to exceed $20,000.
okay, motion from Ms. Templey, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Melby, is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call, Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Chambers.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay,
Okay, number 18, community center water heater replacement.
So this was something that was somewhat of an emergency issue. A leak was identified with the water heater, and it needed to be, and I apologize that it's upside down. I did the rotate button.
everyone did the rotate button.
I don't know how that happened.
We're good.
But so unexpected leak, required repair, contacted a provider, Razak Plumbing. And so over the phone, we received an estimate of what the repair cost would be, which was about, I think it was $2,700. Well, then after this unexpected repair took place and we received the invoice, it was greater than $2,700. Bringing this to your attention so that you're aware of this, because it was an unexpected expense, but it was over $3,000. We didn't anticipate it being over $3,000 when we received the estimate and needed to take action in the moment. But there's no action being asked of this item. It's merely to make you aware there was an emergency situation. We responded accordingly, and here's the expense. But our financial policy does require expenditures over $3,000 be approved prior to, and we just didn't have the opportunity to do that with this one. So we wanted to make sure that you were fully aware of what occurred.
So there is no action required, okay.
This was included in the bills tonight.
Does anyone have any questions on what happened? Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, appointments to committees, commissions, boards, and confirmed appointments. There are none tonight, which leads us to public comment. No council action will be taken on any matter originating under this item. I've not been made aware of anyone who wants to address the council tonight. Is there anyone who would like to do so? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick concern about panorama construction, if I may.
You have 2 minutes.
Well, with the 2 new buildings coming in, it's great that they have underground parking, and that's got that long, I don't know if anyone's been there, you got that long winding driveway to a circle.
Yep.
It's not really convenient for school buses, and with the 2 new buildings, maybe they can take that into consideration, that when you go around that circle, when you hit it just right, you can do it without backing up, but sometimes you do have to back up, and that's not always a good thing to do. You have to keep an eye on your kids. Right now, I'm dropping off at least 6 there every day, and with 2 new buildings, of course, that amount will probably grow, and I just figured that would be a concern that you guys might want to address.
Thanks, Rob. Anyone else? All right, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, Richland Center, the city of Richland Center has had a truly momentous night tonight. I've been doing this for several years now. Just the finance committee had 11 items on this agenda. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before. And in the midst of this, we just covered a lot of have-tos that are very important. Furnace replacement, skid steer purchase, landfill monitoring service agreement. These are big things. They're not the exciting ones, but they're big things. And in the midst of that, Jason commented earlier tonight that the land down on Orange Street that the city's purchasing, that the development might be 2 or 3 years out. That's no joke. It takes a long time. There's a lot of steps, right? You buy the land, you have to check the soil, you have to remove the buildings, you have to do all these steps, state-approved plans, all of this stuff. It takes a lot of work. So tonight, this council has advanced Panorama Estates. That was multiple years getting to here. And the purchase of this property in the Orange Street corridor also multiple years getting here, and we did it. So everybody up here should be proud of yourselves. Every single one of you. Way to go, Richland Center. Let's do it. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all for coming.
Yeah, it's nice to have a crowd.
We absolutely did.